his funds.
Monis's penchant for doubling up his bets was about to prove his undoing. The WBL was a disaster, soaking up money. Remarkably, Monis directed that far more funds be used to keep the league going. By 1991, millions of dollars had been embezzled. But then, a check to this travel agency for WBL expenses would cause the entire scheme to unravel. The travel agent showed the check to her landlord, who happened to be a Phar Mor investor. He brought it to the attention of David Shapira.
David Shapira called in Pat Finn for an explanation. Now, try to put yourself in Pat Finn's shoes for a moment. What would you have done? Well, true to form, Finn stonewalled, then admitted that $1 million of Phar Mor money had gone to support Monis's basketball league, when in fact, more than $10 million had already been embezzled for this purpose. Shapira said he wanted to see the check registers himself. So Finn raced back to Monis, afraid the entire fraud might now be exposed.
Monis suggested one last desperate gamble. According to Finn, he said there was still time to paper over the WBL fraud as long as they didn't lose their nerve.
I felt like I was almost like in quicksand. I kept sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. But I always had a belief that we could fix it. I never wanted to tell myself that we couldn't fix it, because if we couldn't fix it, there was nothing but bad.
I remember it very distinctly. He called Stan and myself in his office, and he said that, well, we have to get these checks and type over who they were paid out to or white out who they were paid to. I flat out refused. As soon as I heard that, I said, there's no way that I'm going to do that.
Finally, someone had drawn the line. But there was still Stan Cherylstein. Finn asked his controller to come to his home the next morning.
I arrived at Pat's house early Saturday morning. We looked through the journals very briefly before we looked at each other and knew that there was no way that we could cover up $10 million in advances to the World Basketball League. And I think at that point in time, he and I both knew that it was over.
Shapiro needed to find out how much money was missing. Who did he turn to? The auditors, Coopers and Lybrand.
When we first heard that these checks had been found, we pulled together the audit team, who simply went out to start digging into areas that had not been dug into prior to this discovery.
Coopers began interviewing employees who could tell them what they'd missed. John Anderson was anxious to talk.
They needed my help. I knew that I wanted divorced from the Pat Finn situation, and I must admit I was overwhelmed. But at the same time, I was not hesitant or reluctant at all to kind of show them everything that I knew what was going on.
Anderson told them the WBL payments were just the beginning of a huge fraud. With Anderson leading them by the hand, Coopers now discovered the full extent of what it had missed during 4 years of audits. The board had to do something. It fired the auditors, blaming them for not finding the fraud. The game was over. In fact, the company that even Walmart feared hadn't earned a dime in 5 years. A tip about a check for travel arrangements had led to the discovery of one of the biggest corporate frauds in U.S. history. For Mickey Monis, it also appeared to be over. Phar Mor fired him, and he was indicted on 129 criminal counts. The government accused him of directing the fraud. Their chief witness would be his protege, Pat Finn. If convicted, Monis would face life in prison and fines of more than $36 million. Overnight, Phar Mor's image of success was snuffed out. The company filed for bankruptcy, revealing that it needed $500 million to erase the losses. And the shockwave spread quickly across the nation's business community as suppliers, banks, and investors learned that they'd been backing a loser all these years. Phar Mor's last official act before it filed for bankruptcy was to sue Coopers and Lybrand, claiming their audits fell far short of accounting standards, were in fact incompetent. But Coopers and Lybrand has its excuse. it was royally snookered just like everyone else.
When you have the most senior management of the company, particularly its financial management, consciously setting out to fool the auditors, to hide information from them as they've testified in the Monis trial, it's very hard to get around that kind of activity by the senior management.
But according to the SEC, auditors have a responsibility to do more.
The auditors, at the end of the day, have no room to compromise. They have a responsibility to dig deeper, to be skeptical, to ask questions, and to impose a discipline on management and on the financial reporting process that may otherwise not be there.
If found negligent, Coopers will be liable for hundreds of millions of dollars. But they're fighting back.
We're suing David Shapira as the CEO, and our assertion is that he either knew or was recklessly indifferent in not knowing of what was going on around him. We believe that they are principally responsible for the fraud.
Surprising to many, Mickey Monis's first trial ended in a hung jury.
Oh, no. We had our minds made up. He was as guilty as I'm standing here.
Really? There's more than enough facts to convict, I feel. But some people just refuse to see the facts.
Who was undecided?
One person hung the whole jury, every single count. I believe the person was paid off, myself.
The FBI is taking these allegations seriously and is investigating for possible jury tampering. John Anderson, in return for his cooperation, was never prosecuted. Despite his role in hiding the fraud for 4 years, he still sees himself as a victim.
You see him? I used to have this belief that all people were good and that all people had good intentions. And where I'm at right now is I really have a hard time trusting people. And that's something I have to learn to do again because I want to do that again. But having been to this particular experience, it really has made me look at people and situations in business in an unfavorable manner. And I have to learn to trust people again.
Stan Charlstein was fired by Phar Mor, but never charged with anything. He's named in several civil suits brought by investors, and now works in Florida as an accountant.
I really think that the situation at Phar Mor occurs at small companies and middle-sized companies all the time. And my recommendation to any accountants or chief financial officers would be, don't let it happen. Don't let it start. Because once you start, it's very easy to let it happen a second time. And who knows where it will end.
It ended in jail for Pat Finn. Last February, having admitted his responsibility for crafting the fraud, he reported to a federal prison to begin serving a 33-month sentence.
It's okay to be loyal. It's okay as I did, try to build a company, to nurture something from the beginning. But never lose sight of yourself, never compromise yourself for that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. No matter how much of a team ball player you think you are, you're just destroying yourself and destroying things that are important to you.
You can understand certain things. You can understand aggressive accounting. You can understand people who are executives, who are hard-charging, who are optimistic. That's how they get to be leaders. Those very things that made someone a superb executive, a superb accountant, a superb chief financial officer, sometimes also make them a superb criminal.
Mickey Monis is still gambling, still denying everything, and now awaits the start of his second trial. The jury will have to decide whether Mickey Monis is a crook or just a hard-driving entrepreneur.
What a sad day it is for Youngstown. What a black day it is for Youngstown.